Hello, I am the Script Doctor. I am amazed at how Batwoman manages to fail at the basic fundamentals of storytelling every week. They dumb down their characters to lift others up, they fail to understand how a ticking clock concept works, and they fail at establishing the state of the universe and why their hero is needed. Because of this, they fail to create a suspension of disbelief. A lot of shows when starting out have a few stumbles or missteps as the production figures out what works and what doesn't to create the brand of the show. But in Batwoman's case, their brand is, we're not going to try. At all. Nothing proves this statement better than episode 7 of Batwoman, Tell Me the Truth, where in this episode we see that the writers are far more terrible at plot structure than I initially suspected. Plot structures where the writer determines the most effective scenes that define the sequence of events that lead the hero to their goal. In this case, Kate's goal is to prevent Sophie from revealing her secret life as Batwoman to her father. This is a pretty good goal to have. What the writers need to do is establish consequences if she fails. First, they need to show us that Sophie can prove that Kate is Batwoman. However, in the previous 6 episodes, Sophie has no proof. Second, they need to show us that if Daddy Crow learns Kate is Batwoman, that he can stop her. Except, in the previous 6 episodes, the Crows haven't stopped anyone. So where is the threat? Sure, someone could argue that just the idea presented to Daddy Crow or any authority that Kate is Batwoman could put eyes on her to see if there's truth to that accusation. But there still needs to be context to warrant such an action. For starters, we need a character that wants to know, that must know, who Batwoman is under the mask. We don't have that. Daddy Crow doesn't ever once order the unmasking of Batwoman. It's not his goal. His goal is to protect the city. The only overlap of that goal with Batwoman is arresting her. Sure, that will result in her identity being revealed, but he has yet to ever show us he cares about such information. It's not at the top of his to-do list. Now, if we had a side character like a journalist or police detective that needs to know who Batwoman is for a case or story they want to write, then we have a motivation. A motivation of one character that puts Kate's actions in jeopardy. But that's not an element in Batwoman. The closest thing we get to that is Sophie, who for some reason thinks telling Daddy Crow that Kate is Batwoman will keep her safe. Except so far in this show, Batwoman has survived every challenge she has faced without much difficulty, and Sophie has been kidnapped and dropped off a high-rise in the pilot and shot in the side last episode. If anything, Kate should be the one trying to convince Sophie to leave the Crows to keep her safe. So while there is a good goal about keeping Kate's secret as Batwoman safe, we don't see any plausible motivation for exposing such a secret, nor do we see any means of proving Kate is Batwoman from Sophie's perspective. Yes, Kate does ride her motorcycle while wearing the Batwoman costume around the city and drives it into Wayne Enterprises' underground parking lot every night, but there isn't a character competent enough in this series to recognize those things. This is a city where a private security firm is terrible at private security, and cops shoot at their captured suspects and fellow officers drowning in a submerged police van. The universe is constantly being manipulated to service the main character, and we're going to see how that's blatantly done in episode 7. We open with Kate narrating how Bruce was able to prowl the streets of Gotham night after night, helping the innocent and able to do it all alone. Yeah, that sounds like Batman. He doesn't need huge teams to save the city. He's well trained and well equipped to do it on his own. When he gets a partner, it's more like a successor than a crutch. But since no one at the CW knows how to write characters like that, we're stuck with Kate doing her narration and slowly building her team over the course of the season. We have Luke as her computer hacker guy, we have Mary as her medic. It's only a matter of time until she discovers Kate is Batwoman. But if they keep that secret for the remainder of the season, I will be really impressed. After the narration, we are taken to a fancy restaurant where an assassin looking through a scope is searching for his target. But before he can fire, Batwoman snags him away from the window and strings him up. What is strange is how she just leaves him there. No interrogation as to who he is trying to kill or who paid him to do it. She just runs away while he shoots his pistol at her. The Crows arrive alarmingly quick, almost as if they knew the assassin was going to be there beforehand. Because if they were responding normally to a call, it would take them a few hours to arrive based on the example we were shown in the pilot. Sophie is head of this patrol and she dispatches her team to find the shooter. Meanwhile, the shooter unloads a few rounds at the cable, freeing himself from Batwoman's trap and escaping the scene before the Crows can apprehend him. While Batwoman strolls through the alleyway, Sophie surprises her for the second time this season and calls her Kate. Batwoman denies being Kate to Sophie, which is the first time she's behaving smart about this situation. However, it doesn't last long because the dialogue exchange doesn't make sense. Sophie informs Batwoman that she'll tell Daddy Crow that she's Kate. Batwoman's response is, "Do you trust me?" Naturally, Sophie says, "What?" because that question has nothing to do with the context of the conversation, and Kate tells Sophie that she'll find her. They're standing inches apart. What does that mean, she'll find her? They're not talking about meeting again or planning to take out a criminal. What were they trying to achieve with this exchange? It feels like a block of dialogue was cut out where they were originally talking about how the assassin just got away. Did Batwoman say originally that once she recaptures the assassin, she'll find Sophie to turn him over? Because that would have made more sense, even if Sophie was throwing in lines about revealing Kate as Batwoman to her father. Sophie's husband stumbles out of the building as Batwoman grapples to the roof. Forgettable husband wants details and Sophie lies about speaking to Batwoman. Cut to a British bombshell scoping out a bullet hole and confirming over the phone that she was correct and her target is in Gotham. We get exposition from Vesper Fairchild that this assassin, codenamed The Rifle, has killed 2 other people this week. Great. We're told this character did bad things off screen. Couldn't afford a montage of him taking out 2 other people? Maybe have the Crows respond, frustrated that people they've sworn to protect are being murdered? Maybe have them on the hunt? Maybe have them on stakeouts? Something, perhaps, to show urgency or concern? This is probably the writers trying to execute a useful tip when crafting a scene or story. That tip is, arrive late and get out early. It pertains to having the audience introduced to the story a few minutes after it has started. The goal is to get to the conflict of the story sooner rather than later. An example would be a couple decide to divorce a few minutes before heading to a dinner party. They have to go in order to keep up appearances, so they decide to tough it out for the night and act nice. An amateur writer would have a scene of those 2 agreeing to the divorce and then planning how they're going to act at the party. A professional writer would have them at the party, behaving as if they had the aforementioned conversation and trying not to reveal this change in the relationship in front of their friends. The goal is to let the dialogue and action between the couple convey that they're not doing well as opposed to us being told that they're getting a divorce. A terrible professional would start the story with them on the ride home from the party after they had had a big argument, ruining the event for everyone else. That's what Batwoman did here. All the fun conflict of this premise was skipped over. The first kill, the research about the victim, discovering the second kill and putting together a pattern, all ignored. All tension and expectations gone. We've started too late, in my opinion. The best question we have keeping our interest is how many more people will the rifle kill? Vesper's news report follows up with the owner of the restaurant who thanks Batwoman for saving, well, no one knows who the intended target was. Also, no one should know that Batwoman was responsible for stopping it. Only 2 people saw Batwoman, Sophie and Forgettable Husband. Did one of them tell reporters that they were too late and Batwoman saved the day? Would that not be bad for business? They didn't even show a patron of the restaurant outside seeing Batwoman flee the scene. How could anyone outside of these 2 know that Batwoman was there? During the day, Kate shadowboxes on a narrow walkway. Lots of quick cuts to hide the stunt double that Luke speaks to during the scene about Daddy Crow filing for divorce. Didn't think he'd be so public about it. I mean, he's the head of the Crows. The public perception would be that he couldn't manage his marriage, so how can he manage protecting Gotham? The people could probably make the leap that this divorce could be the reason the Crows have been so terrible at their job for the past 7 episodes. Also, if the divorce was publicly announced, wouldn't the criminal reasons for the divorce be revealed as well? Shouldn't Catherine Hamilton be arrested? Or did he just state the irreconcilable differences ploy like all other celebrities do? Either way, I'm surprised there aren't reporters trying to dig deeper into this story. Kate takes it well, knowing that this monster of a woman will be out of their lives in the near future. Luke, on the other hand, exposits how he's found a pattern in the victims of those being killed by the rifle. You know, a reveal we typically get at the end of the first act. Here, we're learning it at the start of the first act, which means we're probably going to get a bloated out B story that doesn't really add much to the episode. Kate finally shows some urgency wanting to get the rifle because once Sophie tells Daddy Crow about Kate's secret, she figures she'll be shut down. Is Daddy Crow funding Batwoman? I'm pretty sure this is a separate entity, and given that he hasn't turned over his wife who has committed much worse crimes, I think Kate is safe. But Luke asks if she could trust Sophie not to reveal her secret, and here is the first hint of the B story. Or will it be the A story? Part of me thinks this whole rifle thing will be knocked down to the D level. At the Crow's HQ, Sophie asks where Daddy Crow is, which is strange. Is she not second in command? Should she not have a bead on her boss at all times? Luckily, her husband brings her coffee and remarks how he went upstate to check something out. Sophie wants to tell Daddy Crow in person about Kate's secret, and that method intrigues her husband. As he reviews last night's encounter with the rifle, he asks Sophie again about the standoff between her and Batwoman and if the two are working together, which seems like an odd question. At what point in the series has anyone from the Crows seen Sophie and Batwoman working together? Did Sophie tell her husband that Batwoman rescued her from the executioner last week? Is that why he thinks they're working together? He also poses the question with such jealous tone here. Why would he be jealous of Batwoman? It's as if the actor playing the husband is channeling the audience's knowledge of Sophie's romantic history. If this show had a real director, I bet they would have asked for another take and this time have the actor play it as if he forgot Sophie used to be in a relationship with Kate, because the character still doesn't know that information at this point. We follow up with Catherine and Mary in the back of a car where she learns that Daddy Crow is upstate and won't be present during the divorce proceedings. Interesting how that is mentioned twice. His location but lack of a reason for him going. Mary is upset because she's losing Kate, which is odd because they haven't actually interacted in several episodes. At least not as Kate, it's just been Batwoman and Mary. I suppose we're left to infer from this scene that between episodes Mary and Kate have become best friends. Conveniently, after Mary has finished her speech, Catherine gets a phone call about her gun missing and that the tech from the last episode has turned up dead. That is quite the elapsed time for the head of a company to learn such things. I mean, enough time has passed for two other people associated with her company to be assassinated by the rifle, and only now is she learning about a dead employee from the last episode. There's no follow-up to that. After all, this actor is only allowed 2 scenes an episode, so instead we cut to night where Batwoman is shadowing the rifle's next target in a parking lot. As she strolls through the parking lot, real discreet Kate, she sees the potential victim and the rifle crouched behind a car. A third person drops in and fights the rifle. The would-be victim escapes, and as the rifle runs off, Batwoman bolos him to the ground. Instead of rushing to the rifle to slap some handcuffs on him, she's challenged by our British hero. During the scuffle, the rifle escapes. No idea why she chose to fight Batwoman instead of just rushing to the criminal and securing them for transport. We get the reveal that the British character is Julia Pennyworth, Alfred's daughter, and instead of the two of them dispensing with the pleasantries and going after the rifle who's just started his escape, they stand around and chat until the commercial break. What happened to Kate's urgency before? You know, stopping this guy before her dad supposedly shuts her down. Like, come on, go after the bad guy. We come back from commercial where the rifle's target is having a little jaunt through an alleyway where he is attacked by Mouse, who stabs him repeatedly in the stomach. You know, ladies, that could have been avoided if you rose to the level of responsibility of your characters instead of chatting in a parking lot. It turns out Alice is behind the rifle, hiring him out to kill the only 3 people that could make that Batwoman killing gun. I seriously doubt that. I think it would be more like 30 people who know how to make such a weapon, especially in a leading defense company. Anyway, Alice is trading the gun for something else. We don't know what that is because we have to return to the Batcave where Julia Pennyworth exposits about being in Gotham to take down the rifle, which she would have succeeded in doing if she didn't attack Batwoman. Luke shows up, there's an exchange about Julia and Kate being in a relationship because of course they were, and how Kate is still hooked on Sophie. We cut to a flashback regarding military school and the letter to deny homosexual behavior. We also learn that this is happening a week before graduation, which means there's no stakes for them regarding this conflict. They can literally sign this statement, graduate, and pick up where they left off a week later. If this were going to happen in the middle of school, where they have a few more years before graduation, then the conflict would be more understandable. How would these two who love each other deal with hiding such intimacy from the school for 2 more years? Anyone can do a week. It won't be easy, but holding on to the idea that once that week is done, normalcy returns will help you get by. What the writers have done is make this entire conflict ridiculous. It no longer has weight. It just shows that Kate is impatient and doesn't know about risk management, which is a skill someone protecting Gotham dressed like a bat needs to have. Sophie tells her husband she's heading out. Her husband suspects she's going to see Batwoman for reasons, and we cut to the restaurant where the owner has framed the bullet that nearly killed a patron of his a few days earlier. That's not morbid. While Kate is about to confess to Sophie that she's Batwoman, the owner of the restaurant approaches and using poorly tactful means essentially asks Kate and Sophie to leave. Kate decides to make it a public scene and storms out, with Sophie on her heels to find out why Kate always has to act this way when faced with jerks. Sophie transitions us to a flashback where she gets some advice from Daddy Crow about who Kate is and the reality of what the school will do if she doesn't sign the letter. He supports Sophie but reminds her that the school won't behave as she thinks and that if she doesn't sign that letter she'll be kicked out and erased from the school's history. Sophie argues to Kate how because of that talk with Daddy Crow and graduating from school, she was able to serve, make money for her family, and get a job with the Crows. All of these are good things, but Kate doesn't care because Sophie lied about being gay. Apparently for Kate, who dresses up as Batwoman and takes the law into her own hands, there's no gray area when it comes to making right or wrong choices with a lie. Sophie finally reveals to her husband about her past relationship with Kate. She reinforces the idea that she's with him and that's how it's going to be, and we've crossed 21 minutes into the show with no more further action taken regarding capturing the rifle. In fact, the two characters wanting to capture this villain are exchanging stories over Chinese food instead of searching the city. I guess life and death moments of the innocent are a far second to socializing over food. Kate returns to Wayne Enterprises, convinced that Sophie will tell her father about being Batwoman. They're about to enter the Batcave when Mary shows up to see them activate the secret entrance. It's not much of a conflict except for Carl, the security guy who's probably out of a job. Mary wants to gossip with Kate about how their family is falling apart, but Kate has other priorities and shoos Mary away. Daddy Crow returns from upstate to start drinking, and Catherine comes in begging him to help find the coil gun she made to kill Batman. Sophie, eavesdropping, states how with Catherine's help they can locate the gun and get it back from whomever stole it. Sophie expresses how finding the gun is priority because if it could kill Batwoman, then it means it could kill Kate, as they are one and the same. Daddy Crow takes this news rather well, all things considered. No phone call to Kate, no asking where she might be at this hour. Nothing. Not a single reaction. Not even a question asking for proof of this statement. Nope, it's another commercial break so we can start a new scene at one of Alice's lairs where the rifle exchanges a vial of chemicals for the coil gun. We cut to a random building where Sophie leads the Crows. Apparently the coil gun gives off a radioactive signature that can be traced with this handheld device. Sophie states how the radiation is off the charts, leading me to believe that whoever uses this weapon would be getting a heavy dose of radiation poisoning. We don't get to continue with this scene, but instead get a repeat of the flashback from the pilot. This leads into a teacher removing Kate's sharpshooter medal from the display case. Sophie is upset by this and reveals how Kate won that medal hungover from the night before and takes the medal away. This is all exposition. Someone else telling us how Kate is a great shot. When if they were going to do a flashback, the story that Sophie tells would have made a great one to watch instead of here. One where we see Kate and Sophie partying the night before and then Kate pushing through her hangover to win the competition. Why couldn't we see that? Sophie checks in with Daddy Crow as they search for the gun, and Catherine states her case for doing what she did. She argues that if the two of them stick together, they can get over the fact that Catherine faked her daughter's death. I'm really surprised. Not just by the terrible argument, but by watching Catherine in a third scene. Sophie searches more rooms and she finds Batwoman. She immediately warns her to get away, and that proclaims how if she could do it again, she'd have quit school and gone with Kate. Sophie reveals that she told Daddy Crow her secret, but not because she's loyal to the Crows, but because she's worried Kate would get killed. Kate reveals herself behind Sophie, so Julia is wearing the costume helping Kate out with the secrecy. Sophie asks why Kate is here, and we're all wondering the same thing. We don't get time for an answer because Batwoman has been shot with the coil gun, knocked through a brick wall, and drops around 3 stories to the ground. Yeah, she should be dead, but it's the CW, so Julia's just going to have some minor bruises and injuries. What's pathetic is that the shot came from behind Kate, where Sophie was staring and she didn't even see the shooter. The Crows gather up Batwoman and throw her in the back of their truck instead of securing the area and calling for an ambulance. They also don't even bother looking for the shooter. The rifle strolls down the stairs with the Crows only a few meters away and they don't even see him. He's right there, watching one of their trucks drive away with Batwoman, and none of them are around to arrest him. That is absolutely pathetic. These are supposed to be ex-Navy SEALs and Green Berets. How insulting is it that the writers of Batwoman show these heroes being utterly incompetent? If I were a Green Beret or Navy SEAL, I'd be writing this show letters about how they insult the service, as well as insulting the art of story. Kate snatches Sophie's gun and tells her that she's going after Batwoman, which is a strange action for Kate from Sophie's perspective because Sophie has been fooled into thinking Kate isn't Batwoman. So why would Kate care about Batwoman being captured by the Crows? This should spark some more questions with Sophie, but sadly it doesn't. She was all set to expose Kate as Batwoman with no evidence, but when some out-of-character behavior of a civilian wanting to rescue Batwoman from the Crows occurs, Sophie just lets that slide. Kate goes after the van, and with her sharpshooting skills that we were told about in a flashback, flashback, she takes out the van, possibly killing the passengers inside along with Julia. Miraculously, the Crows aren't injured. They get out of the van and order Kate to get on the ground. Kate responds by beating each of them up and freeing Batwoman. The rifle returns to Alice, upset that the gun didn't work. He threatens how Sophia is going to be pissed. Maybe he means Sophia. It's either Sofia Falcone or Sofia Ramos, also known as Babylon. Or it could be a new character. Don't know, don't care. We get a flashback of Alice removing a part from the coil gun, showing her duplicitous nature, as if we weren't expecting that. In the Batcave, Kate tends to Sophie's injuries, which are just a few broken ribs, and exposits how the rifle got away. That's some real good heroing you've been doing in today's episode, ladies. You had your guy at the start, and instead of working together, you fought, then talked, and forgot to search for the villain. Instead, you spent the time convincing Sophie that Kate isn't Batwoman. It would have been far more impressive and far more entertaining if they managed to convince Sophie that Kate isn't Batwoman, and nab the bad guy as well. I mean, this is a show designed to be empowering to women, yet you have them fail? And fail with really bad reasons. Not because the villain was better than our heroes, but because our heroes chose not to put the villain as a priority. After Julia exposits how she's leaving to track the rifle in another part of the world, we find Kate cleaning up a building that she recently purchased. Sophie is there to remark on her shooting skills and tell her that she smoothed things over with Daddy Crow, saying she was wrong about Kate being Batwoman. Kate comes up with the excuse that she rescued Batwoman because Kate thought she meant a lot to Sophie and didn't want to see Batwoman end up in the wrong hands. But that doesn't make much sense because everything that Sophie said to Batwoman was because she thought Batwoman was Kate. In fact, Kate was there as Sophie confessed that she can't lose her, so that's really a full of crap statement from Kate, and Sophie doesn't even pick up on it. Kate reveals that her dinner plans with Sophie earlier were about her severing ties with Sophie. She still has feelings for her and doesn't want to complicate things between herself, Sophie, and forgettable husband. Sophie leaves Kate with a gift of her sharpshooter medal from school. After some narration from Kate about not trusting people and Sophie's poor attempt at convincing her husband that she's only in love with him, Kate hangs up a pride flag and tells Mary how she's turning this place into a gay bar because the guy across the street asked her to leave his restaurant. Daddy Crow leaves a message with Kate as he drives back to Gotham. Apparently, his trip upstate was regarding a lead on Cartwright. It didn't pan out, and so he's on his way back. It's revealed that Mouse was posing as Daddy Crow this entire time, which doesn't actually mean anything. They try to suggest that because of this, Catherine and Daddy Crow have reconciled, but that's not the case at all. Daddy Crow is going to be coming back to Gotham and move on with divorce procedures, and Catherine is going to be confused at first and then right back where she was at the start of this episode, getting divorced. Alice and Mouse's plan to pose as Daddy Crow has no impact. It means nothing. It was just a waste of time. If they had Daddy Crow captured and used Mouse to replace him for the duration of the season, then there would be some elevated stakes, some more details revealed regarding her so-called plan, some dramatic irony for the audience that we know it's really Mouse when everyone else does not. But they didn't do that. It was just a wasted opportunity and they didn't do anything of value with it. It also highlights how the writers don't have a full understanding of what dramatic irony is. Nothing of Alice's plan in this episode was dependent on Mouse posing as Daddy Crow, so why was it in there? This episode was really nothing more than a contrived way to end the Sophie thinking Kate is Batwoman story and Kate finally starting her real estate business. That is it. A background set of goals that didn't need an entire episode to do this. Referring to the start where I talked about getting in stories late and leaving early, well, they could have done that effectively with the deception of Sophie and with Kate getting that bar. The last episode dealt with Kate learning that Sophie is convinced she's Batwoman, so why not have that be something she addresses at the start of this episode? With just a little rework and structure, I can make a more coherent story. It doesn't take much. It's actually pretty easy. All I have to do is define each character goal posed in this episode and make them link together. Alice wants the gun to be the only one of its kind. Kate needs to convince Sophie she's not Batwoman, and Kate needs to start her real estate firm. Bring in Julia for the rifle plot and bridge it to the identity deception as the episode originally did, and add in a point regarding Mouse posing as Daddy Crow that pertains to the rifle plot, and this is what you get. Have the rifle fail to kill his target in the opening. Batwoman snags him away and then has that thing with Sophie in the alleyway. Forgettable husband informs Sophie that the rifle freed himself and is on foot. Batwoman grapples to the roof and engages in a foot chase. There she encounters Julia Pennyworth taking down the rifle. The two have it out briefly where Julia learns that Batwoman is Kate. The two of them hear the Crow's team approaching and hide. Sophie surrounds the rifle before he can free himself from the bolo, and they put him in their truck. Alice, infuriated that her assassin has been caught, gets Mouse to pose as Daddy Crow. Her plan is to release the rifle so he can complete his mission of killing the last guy who knows how to make that deadly coil gun weapon. Once he's free, Kate and Julia decide to work together to get him back. The Crows set up a security detail on the would-be victim. Kate heads over to the restaurant featured in the opener to order some food to go. Here, the owner refuses to serve her because she's gay or something. I don't really care about dated things like this, but keeping in mind of what the show wants to say, let's just keep the message and rework it to lead to the end of the episode. While Sophie is on guard duty, Batwoman shows up, gets that speech from Sophie, and then Kate arrives with some food from another place. She brought the meal for Sophie while she's on watch. Her plan was to set some distance between her and Sophie, essentially ending their so-called relationship, and the food is to make the news more tolerable. I think it's a more plausible excuse for Kate to see Sophie instead of just randomly showing up at an abandoned apartment building. Before Kate can make her statement about not seeing Sophie anymore, the rifle using the coil gun shoots Batwoman and then shoots at Sophie. Kate saves Sophie, but the projectile goes through the door and kills the final target. The rifle gets away and the Crows capture Batwoman. We can throw in that lame rescue of Batwoman by Kate's set piece, and you close out the episode with Kate buying that bar across from the homophobic restaurant. Do you see this, Batwoman writers? What a little bit of thought and effort can do? How valuable structure, character motivations, choices, and creating believable scenarios can improve your story? I hope so. I hope you learn, and I hope you eventually write a good episode. But I won't be holding my breath. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to add to this episode, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and never forget, it all starts with the script.